Hey, Will here, and today I would like to discuss the blended learning models with you. In particular, the four models, which are rotation, flex, a la carte, and enriched virtual. Now, starting with the rotation model, this one is pretty much the most easily implemented model that any teacher or school system could do. It's basically, honestly, rotating. It's in the name right there. So the idea is that you have more of the flipped classroom component there. Perhaps you have the students accessing the virtual classroom content within the brick and mortar location of your school. And then from there, they rotate around to do different small group projects, or they have different stations so they can experience different things. It is very low change and low anxiety for both students and teachers. I think that's probably why it's the most widely adopted version. In terms of the stakeholders, as in the people who are going to be utilizing and benefiting this the most, starting with the teachers do need to be the facilitators of learning. They also need to provide the structured experiences in terms of if there's any sort of examples or explanations they're doing in class. And finally, they have to maintain that classroom management. So classroom management is still a key component within the rotation model. In terms of students as stakeholders in the rotation model, we know that they have to be flexible. They have to understand that they're moving around. They have to be able to change their gears and their mindset whenever they move to one of these new stations. They have to maintain their behavior or self-regulate their own behavior because there is a lot more individualized time, so the teacher isn't, keeping the kids in nice, neat rows, so they have to have some responsibilities put on their own. They also get to explore information more on their own time, which I think is cool within the classroom setting. So the students are required to go in and research their information that the teacher has provided for them in these different groups or sections that they go through. And also they are required to finish all of the objectives outlined by the teacher. In terms of the school as a stakeholder, the school they provide the location, the brick and mortar location. They provide the technology resources used within the classroom, and they also help maintain the structured environments, as in like the network infrastructure that works, just basically anything that a person needs to be in the building. Moving on to the flex model, which is our second model for blended learning, it really does follow the individual student's needs. So we're looking at a more personalized learning style for blended learning here. And this is achieved through a brick and mortar location as well as through flipped classroom. So it relies a lot on the rotation style, but this is more project-based learning. So students get more in-depth hands-on experience with a lot of things. This is where flipped learning comes more into play than, say, with the rotation model, and it does rely heavily on the small groups. For the stakeholders in the flex model, as always, the teachers are going to be those facilitators of learning. So instead of having the standard get up front, lecture, give your presentation, whatever it is, they're more guiding the students along their path and along their knowledge. You need to, as a teacher, provide ample opportunities and materials for students to pursue that self-guided learning, which is very important. I believe teachers should be creating all of their own content and curriculum. And within the flex model, I believe this is truly one of those key components there, as the teachers can give the basic information, but then also provide the additional resources that take them away from the content that they've created. As well as teachers do need to start making that push and focus on project-based learning or inquiry-based learning in small group settings. As a student, again, self-regulation, so behaviors, interests, all of that good stuff that goes with self-regulation. You also need to provide engagement in projects and groups. So as a student, providing engagement means you can't just sit back and do nothing. With the flex learning model, it really is what you put into it is what you receive. You also have to be fairly self-sufficient within the flex model. As a school, the school does need to provide the location, so the physical location, as well as provide web services or web hosting for their cloud platform that they use. And also, as a school, it helps to allow teacher freedom in choice of curriculum. With the flex model, if the teacher is spending more time on project-based learning, then the freedom for them to create their own curriculum should be encouraged instead of using the standard textbook that was purchased for the class. This brings us to our third model, which is the a la carte model. I like to think of the a la carte model as more of the buffet style. So, you go to Golden Corral, you got your buffet going on there, and you can pick and choose whatever you want, and then come back and grab some more of something else, maybe some more of something you liked. That's what the a la carte really does. See, the a la carte style allows a student to choose between online and in class for their education. So they could spend 2 or 3 classes online learning through college that's providing online courses, or learning through some other institution. And as well as then they can choose to go into a brick and mortar classroom and engage with other students and the teachers. They are partially removed from the traditional school model. So this is kind of the traditional school model where everyone shows up, but there's like a giant plus at the end of it, because this allows that freedom of choice for the students to then look into different things or interests that they might have. What I think is great about the a la carte model is it does in high school provide the opportunity for college credits, so students in high school could also be obtaining college credits at the same time. In terms of universities, the a la carte model has been in place for a while. Some students can sit in their dorm room or sit in their house if they're off campus in their pajamas till 2 p.m. doing online classes, and then come into school later on that day and be in a brick and mortar classroom. Stakeholders again, so the teachers, they are the facilitators. So that means they're working with the students. They also have to be mindful in knowing which students are kind of that quote-unquote part-time students who are splitting their time between online classes and brick and mortar classrooms. And I think that's important because online classes tend to pile on a lot more all at once, not being mindful that their consumers, their students, are taking other classes at the same time. Teachers also need to be flexible in their teaching styles, meaning that maybe sometimes they're in the brick and mortar and sometimes they're spending a few hours on their computer in a class. And also teachers do need to create the clear expectations for what is expected in both the classroom as well as the online classroom. Students, they do again have to self-regulate their learning. They are in charge of their learning in this model. If they don't believe that they're going to do well in an online math course, then they need to choose to be in a brick and mortar classroom. They also need to find classes and topics that interest them. One of the great things about the a la carte model is you can start focusing more specifically on things that interest you. And also students need to be flexible to that change. Like I said, it's really easy for someone to take 3 classes and be in their pajamas till 2 p.m. And then have to change and get dressed and go off somewhere else and socialize with someone. So they have to be flexible in that. And the schools need to provide locations for the classes both on location, so somewhere in the world, and then also online. They need to provide the online resources for the students, obviously, and they need to maintain and regularly update their cloud platform. Finally, we get to our enriched model, and the enriched model is really the penultimate idea of blended learning. There's the students split their time between the brick and mortar classroom and the virtual classroom. So say it's like 80-20 or 90-10, so they spend 90% of their time in the online classroom, and then maybe they meet once or twice or a couple times in an actual location, so they are socializing, meeting their classmates as well as meeting their teachers. But the idea is that it is pretty much online and that they can go at their own pace. This does allow for more of that individualized learning, so certain topics may be followed more than other topics. And that's just kind of how it goes. And it really is that go at your own pace. So as long as everything's done by the end of the class, when the class is over for the entirety of it, then as long as they're finished there and they've gone at their own pace, then they're good to go. In terms of stakeholders, of course, teachers, again, they're those facilitators, but teachers in the enriched virtual need to be skilled troubleshooters on their LMS platform or learning management system. And that is because they are the first and foremost point of contact for most students when they're having an issue. They need to be able to eloquently and concisely put their ideas into text and voice, because a lot of communication is done through text. So being as clear as possible and in short amount is excellent, because in a lot of times the enriched virtual or online classes, people tend to skim, which is unfortunate. And also need to be flexible to the students' needs, understanding that maybe something comes up one week and they're not able to complete stuff, so it's going to kind of put more effort on the students later on. As long as they understand that, then they're good to go. Students do need to be able to self-regulate. Again, it's one of those core concepts here. When you have any student who's in charge of their own learning, they need to be able to manage their time wisely as well as manage their own behaviors. They need to be flexible to schedule changes because those schedule changes happen. I mean, it's life. Life happens. They also need to maintain a stable internet connection. This one is key for success. If they don't have a stable internet connection, then they're not going to perform as well within the classroom than they potentially could. They'll also need to have a willingness to work by themselves. The enriched virtual, in my opinion, is a lot more closed to collaboration in many ways because there isn't any face-to-face interaction. And if there is collaboration, it's usually done online by themselves. And finally, the school, they need to maintain their online cloud-based platform, provide physical resources for students who can't afford the required items. Many schools have little like Verizon MiFi units or whatever company they go with, and they can give those to students to take home so they have at least an internet connection at their home. And then also they need to have policies in place for accountability. I think that one is key and could be applied to all of these, but specifically in the enriched virtual where it's very easy to end up slacking off, which is very unfortunate. Hopefully you have found this discussion on the blended learning models, specifically the 4 blended learning models of rotation, flex, a la carte, and enriched virtual to be enriching. And as always, thanks for watching.